From old busted taillights, ooh, to fancy taillights. We're going from 4-pin to 7-pin. Come on, I'll show you how it's done. So in the box from NiLight, we have the cord. Well, I say cord, it's the wiring harness. 7-pin with junction box. We'll look inside that here in just a moment. Now you can see here is one of the grommets that slides out of this little U-channel right here. This one has a recessed area to where you can cut it to slide another set of wires through. Or if you need, just replace it with one of these. Now on the end down here, we have 2 strain reliefs. Pull the plugs out, and if you need to run your wire inside here, see that strap? You tighten up those 2 4-way screws, it squeezes down on the cable you stick inside and prevents it from being pulled out. Now they also include the card that tells you what each one of your pins go to. Black is your 12-volt auxiliary, and what that's normally used for, if you're using a what's called breakaway box, this charges that breakaway box, because the breakaway box will have a battery inside of it. So what happens is, if your trailer was to become disconnected from your vehicle, there is a cable that connects the trailer to your truck, okay, or vehicle, whatever you're pulling with. The cable gets snatched, and that breakaway box says, whoa dude, we are disconnected from your tow vehicle, let's lock up the brakes. That 12-volt wire keeps that battery charged while you're towing. Then yellow is your reverse lights, brown is your right turn or stop light, blue is your electric brakes, green is your running tail lights, red is your left-hand turn or stop, and white is going to be your ground. So I backed my Tahoe up here so we can establish a length that we need to set up for the cord. You can see that I've already got a 4-pin set up on it, and this trailer has nothing but lights. It does not have trailer brakes on it. I will be putting them on it, but that's a later video. And hence we need the 7-pin setup because my Tahoe is set up for it. I have brake controller and all that fun stuff. And a real big shout out to NiLight for sending me the harness and the lights. Really, really appreciate it. So the first thing we need to do is plug this in so we can establish our length. See the little keyway right there? It goes in like that right there. Sweet. So right here I put me a cable clamp to hold that in place, which allows me to have my drop I need going into my plug. I have enough drop that whenever I make the turn, it's going to be able to extend out, but not too much drop because you don't want to get close to the road, obviously. So I took the cable off the Tahoe, run it through that right there, which is old electrical tape, but it'll hold it up. Wire tied it right here. People, cut your tails off. Boop. Dude. These are flush style cutters, so they actually don't leave a barb right there that'll cut you. My box is going to hit about right there, so you can kind of see. So what I'm going to do is cut my existing harness right here. Then I'll take these and I'll patch into the junction box. Because my wiring's already run back through there. I know my wire's good, just my taillights are busted because, well, they just keep getting hit. Now the 4-pin harness does not come with the 7-pin, obviously, because we're putting in a 7-pin, but you need to extend back to your taillights. So you may need to run to the hardware store and buy this wiring kit to complete your lights. Modified a wire clamp to hold that right there. Took my, you see right there where I started drilling, I simply held that up there, took a Sharpie marker, marked my centers. Time to drill some holes. So now it's time to wire in the tail lights. You got access here, 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 and here. I'm going to use this one right here. Pull this out because we're going to run our wires through this before we put our ring terminals on to mount them to the studs. Cut you a tiny little slot right there because we're going to run the ends of these wires through that. As I mentioned earlier, I'm reusing my wires that goes back to my tail lights because they're good. This is a 4-pin color code. Notice the color code here. The 2 browns, those are going to be your running lights and your tail lights, just tail lights. Yellow is your left, stop and turn. Green is your right, stop and turn. And your white is going to be your ground. So on our new 7-pin block, we got to know which one we hook these to. So our tail lights, the double browns, is going to go to our green wire, our running tail lights, as it notes here. Our yellow is our right hand stop and turn light, which will go to the brown wire. Then our green, of course, is our left stop and turn. will go to our red wire. So I've already got my ring connectors already put in place. But browns, I can go ahead and stack them together and put them on the appropriate post. So I've got my wires put in the proper place. The strain relief, I wrap the wire around the strain relief one time and then tighten these down. It gives a good, I mean, it has to pull hard and tighten this loop up before it's to start pulling this. You want to do that because that prevents anything. If you want to catch a stick in the road or something like that, it snags your wire. It'll prevent it from pulling it out of the contacts. So make a wrap like that, tighten up these all the way down, and now we'll slide this seal up and put it in place. So the lights that sent me have no provisions for mounting. So what I had to do is, you see, I don't know how well the camera's going to show, there's a spot here and here that I did with a Sharpie marker, which transferred the holes that here to the back of this. I basically just hold it up like that, took a Sharpie from the other side, marked where my holes are. So I need to drill a hole there and there. To prevent me accidentally drilling a hole through the back of the light, I took out the insert. Basically what you do is get you a small screwdriver, get it behind it, and wedge it a little bit, just keep coming back and forth. You'll see the light work its way out, and then you can finally hang it with your fingers and roll it on out. You got my holes drilled, ready to mount, and I suggest, because of the way they're made, you got an open hole right here, unless you have a grommet to fit inside there. As they're mounted like this right here, and it rains, very likelihood you're gonna get water introduced down inside here, and it's got no place to go until I drill these tiny little holes right there. So I suggest, you know, like I said, drill little tiny holes right there for water drainage. But overall, they're very solidly built, and see the welds inside there. It appears to be like electric stat type paint, not necessarily powder coat, but it's like a wet coat that draws in by static, so to speak. But yeah, very solid built, and for those of you who need it, lots of plate. Now for the tail lights, look right here. Black is going to be your tail lights. White, weirdly enough, is ground. Then your red is going to be a stop, turn, light. So what you do is, remember the wiring harness from the front. Your brown's always your tail light, running light. So hooking those to the black. Tail light here. Yellow is going to be your turn. Hook it to the red here, which makes it to the big LED here. Now the smaller one on the end, your end marker, it's just going to have a black and a white. White is your ground. Notice I've still got the ground inside the enclosure. I'll show you why in just a moment. But then you take your, where's it at? The black right here comes out, ties together here to your tail lights. We're going to do something a little different with the ground. The bolt that holds the enclosure on, run it through it, then go back in here, run it through the hole that you see right there that holds the tail light on. That keeps all your wiring inside the box, minimize exposure. Now before I tighten up all my bolts, I wanted you to notice I took a grinder rock, cleaned off all that rust, and took a wire brush, smoothed everything out so you got proper ground. Because remember, our ground's on the inside of the tail light, so it's going to transfer the ground through that bolt. And right there's what I was talking about, that hole going to be wide open, exposed. So I'm going to get me some like RTV, silicone, something, and just fill that hole up right there, try to minimize any kind of water intrusion from rain or splashing going down the road or something. So I would suggest filling that up. And there's why I need new tail lights. And the LED upgrade, well, that doesn't hurt either. Got the old one off, but put the new one in. The mounting procedure is the same. The brown wire connects to your tail lights. Yellow wire is your turn, and the white wires is your ground. Do it just like we did the driver's side. And don't forget your chassis ground. Goes here, out, and I want to take this eye right here. I'm going to put it right there on that bolt. Before you put that ground wire on that bolt, on the outside right here, remove all that paint, because then your bolt will pass the ground circuit through to the wire. There you go. Once you get it all tightened up, hit it with a little bit of paint to seal the metal back up. And there you go, all done. Let's put the cover on. Using the step bits, I've drilled these holes to 11/16. Then take your marker light, push it out of the rubber grommet. Then take your grommet. You may have to fold a little bit to get it tucked inside there. Push it in. You may have to unfold it now that you got it in there. Take your pinky Just kind of work it around, a screwdriver, whatever you need. Now if you look real closely right there on your round LEDs, you can see it says top. Feed your wire through, pay attention to the word top to make sure it is actually up top. Then go around and do the rest of them. As you can see here, I've got the red hooked up, the black's hooked up, and since I run 2 LEDs, there's 2 grounds. They can share a common ground, no problem. The red's a marker light, yellow is going to be your turns. And since I have not done the yellow yet, I'm going to show you how it's done. Get your strippers, take off some of this insulation, just a little bit more. There we go. Do the same for the LED. These things rock right here. Make life so much easier. And then we have these right here. These are kind of like heat shrink connectors, except to see it silver band. That's solder. So as the heat heats the solder up, it melts into the wire. So take your heat shrink solder thingy, I don't know what the heck you call them. Here's a container for them. Solder and seal wire connectors. I'll link it up down in the description so you guys can get you some. You're going to see just how cool they really are. So on the big wire, we're going to take and stick this up the side through this. And if it frays up your wire a little bit, not a big deal. Straighten them out, all good. Take these 2 right here, twist them together. Then you take your shrink tubing, slide it over top of it, like that right there. Then you kind of hold it horizontal so it doesn't slide off there or anything. Kind of hold it like this right here. Heat gun. Get your fingers out of the way because it gets hot. Now before I shrink the connections, you're going to notice I'm going to, the heat shrink ends, I'm going to shrink them down first so it holds this in place. Then I'll put the extra heat on the silver right here on the solder band and melt it in place. Okay, I went around the heat shrink, got it shrunk down. Now let's put the extra heat to the silver band. You can watch it, the solder shrink down on it. I need to quit touching, it's hot. And I'm putting my heat gun on high. All done. Check this out. Look real close to that connection. You can see the silver right there and right there where the solder melted into the wire. Then you got your blue stripe here and here that got the wire sealed up. It's all weather tight and soldered together. I'm telling you, they awesome. When I did that yellow connection right there, something I forgot to do and I had to kind of correct myself. Notice it's a little bit shorter coming out of the LED. It's because we got a connection there, then a connection down here. Notice how they're staggered. There is a reason for that, and I'm about to show you why. Notice how my wires are coming out of the bottom of that angle iron right there. It's coming up through the floor of my trailer. And that's simply because I don't want to drill through the side of my main frame right here just for wiring to penetrate through. I mean, what you see right there is the control box, the junction box on the other side. So if I'm going to run across my floor like that, you see that I use my trailer. And that's some sharp metal right there that come off of a cheap Cherokee XJ. So if I'm throwing sharp metal up here, I'm subject to cut my wires. Let me show you how to protect them. Get you some vacuum line or fuel line and push your wires through them. I had a spool of vacuum line right here, so I cut me off the length of it. I'm feeding my wires through it because that really heavy rubber coating right there will protect my wires from getting cut. And notice too, as I feed it, how the wires get all crossed up. This is 5/16 vacuum line. So if I get my wires like, you know, crossed up like it's right here, it starts getting hard to push in. You see how they're like that? Now, let's put them in line with each other. Notice how the straight line, look at that, it feeds right on in. So every now and then you may have to fish your wires around to make sure they're staying in a good orderly fashion to be able to feed them through. Now remember I had you stagger your connections, one here, one here, one here. If you had all 3 of those stacked on top of each other, it wouldn't feed up inside this tubing right here. Since I've got them staggered, they'll go. Now, using vacuum line tends to stretch a little bit more than a fuel line. So if you're using fuel line, you want to make sure you got plenty of room. Like I said, the vacuum line, it's pretty pliable, it stretches, so I can get over those connections pretty good. But again, if you're using fuel line, you may want to go another size bigger. This right here is 5/16, so if I were using fuel line, I'd have to step up to 3/8. And also, once your tail starts coming out the end of the tubing, you can pull this and push right there, and it helps feed it up onto the wire. Grab hold of your tail right here, hold it right here, and push it up on it little by little. Knocking my water over. Now we have to work the wires around a little bit to get them to feed through. Remember how I told you a moment ago you had to stack your wires a certain direction? Now I'm getting 2 grounds going into this line right here, into this tubing. Now I've got an extra wire to deal with, so I got to make sure they're stacking perfectly so it'll slide on top of all that. You notice I'm grabbing back here and going like this right here. What I'm doing, again, because this vacuum line, it stretches. So as I do that right there, it's stretching it, but I'm compressing it up, like where my hand is. It's compressing up front, but stretching in back. So where it's compressing it, it's going to push it up on that wire. You see? I'm just about up in there. What I'm going to do, I'm going to run the end of this tubing up to about right here. Therefore, everything below this frame, it's going to be protecting it. So another option you can use is this vinyl tubing right here. It's not quite as tough as using like vacuum line or fuel line, but it'll still get the job done. As long as you ain't totally abusive, it'll survive. And that is going to go down through that hole right there. Now I would have used the vacuum line, but I broke my drill bit, and I don't have another one, and I ain't going getting one right now. So that's what I'm doing. Feed my wires from the bottom up so I can make my connections up here where it's comfortable. Then I'll feed these through one at a time and make the other connections under the bottom. So I check my butt connection stack right there, and it will feed down through that hole as long as I keep them in order like that right there. So I went ahead and put me some heat shrink over this. Next, I'll cut my wires to the length, and I'll slide me another big piece of heat shrink over top of this from the bottom side to just encapsulate all that. After I fed the tubing through the angle iron, I put a couple wire ties right here. That'll prevent it from going back up through there, and it'll hold it secure up top. Now I'm going to take the rest of this and run it through some tubing to protect it as I go up this way. Eventually, I'm going to do the same thing to this. Okay, coming out the end of each one of those tubes, I've broke them down to 1 so you won't have as many wires going inside your control box. Using the heat shrink, tubing, sorter stuff, yeah, whatever you call that stuff. Now let's hook up our wires. Black goes to ground on the very end. And be sure to keep your little wiring diagram. It will help you out. What's going to be confusing about this next connection is yellow, remember, is our yellow lights outside. Yellow is your turn signal. This is going to be the left side. So, look at your diagram. Left turn stop goes to the red wire on your junction box. So right there is your red wire, so this yellow wire needs to go to where that red is. So our red wire is our red lights on the outside, which will be our running and tail lights. It goes to the green on the junction box. So that is that wire right there. The red wire goes on the green. We have our left side wired up. Do the right side the exact same way, except whenever you tie in your right side turn signal, you tie it onto your brown wire, which will be right there. Easy, no big deal. And of course the passenger side or right turn does the same thing. Isn't that just awesome? Now let's just see how long they last. This is probably the 3rd set of brake lights I've had on this trailer. They just keep getting beat up. Now let's do the walk around. Check out the lights. Got the red marker lights because I just have my tail lights on, nothing more. Come on back here. I like them, they look so good. Sweet. Let's check out brake lights. So what is more fitting than using a brake disc to hold down the brake pedal? Third brake light lit up, indicating brake lights. There. Now our yellow lights are lit up. Yellow lights are going to be your turns and brakes, the way I've got them wired. Look how bright, sweet. Again, on this side, yellow lit up. They're going to be the brake and turn. And the reds are still lit up because that's the markers. Now let's turn on some turn signals. Left hand first. We got blinky action. Third brake light still on. Turn signal going. The yellow markers, they're flashing. But obviously, right hand turn, they're not. Which means, right turn, Clyde. Yeah. Obviously, no more flashy on the left hand side. Oh, but looky over here. We got right turns. And we got the yellow flashing right here. Sweet. Okay, let's go over brakes. Third brake light turned off, and everything should be business as usual, but without the brake. Very nice. I like them, I like them. I definitely like the side lights on this thing, the side markers or running lights, whatever, and having the side turns, because if you're running long traffic on the highway stuff and you know you got somebody kind of running beside of you, of course they're going to see your tail lights of the rig of the truck, but also having them on the trailer kind of gives them an idea of, hey, there's a black trailer beside of you, but you can see the lights. And here we are in the dark. Left-hand turn with brake light on. Got your yellow flashers. Now we have brake lights, no flashers, no turn. I like the most spots. I think it's pretty bright. I hope that video helps you guys know how to wire up your trailer for lights and later on brakes, so you can take your rig back and forth to the trails. So everyone, if you enjoyed that video, thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't, leave me some cool comments down below. It's done got dark out here. And I'm going in. I gotta work tomorrow. Peace, y'all. Later.